Welcome to the explainer. So picture this. You wake up after a solid 8 hours of sleep, but you feel like you haven't slept a single wink. You're dragging yourself through the day, your whole body just feels incredibly heavy, and that weekend rest you were desperately looking forward to, it does absolutely nothing to recharge your batteries. Well, we usually just brush this off, right? We say, I'm just really busy right now. But what if that chronic, unshakable fatigue is actually your body's very first warning sign of something much more profound? Today, we are breaking down some incredibly fascinating insights from psychiatrist Dr. Shion Kabasawa. And honestly, what really surprised me in his research is this revelation that what we commonly dismiss as just simple, everyday exhaustion might actually be the very first mask that early-stage depression wears. So let's unmask this connection together. Okay, let's dive into this highly relatable, real-world dilemma from our source material. A patient actually reached out to Dr. Kabasawa asking this exact question. I'm tired. I have headaches. Should I force myself to work? Should I try to find a remote job? Am I just being lazy or am I actually ill? This person had already quit a previous job because of poor physical health, and they were trapped in this agonizing limbo. And this isn't just some dry clinical case study. It's a deeply human story. I mean, so many of us have wrestled with this exact feeling. You just don't know whether you should push through the pain or finally hit the brakes. And misunderstanding this exact confusing state is where the danger truly begins. So, to figure out what's really going on here, we need to look at a crucial medical concept that Dr. Kabasawa highlights, and it's called fatigability. Now, this is not your standard, wow, I had a super long day at the office, kind of tired. Fatigability is this profound, overarching sense of general malaise. It's characterized by tiring remarkably easily, feeling physically sluggish literally all day, and this is the big one, not recovering your energy even after a full night of sleep. It's like your internal battery just outright refuses to recharge. Dr. Kabasawa points out that this vague, heavy physical exhaustion is often the very first and most misunderstood warning sign of early-stage depression. You used to have plenty of stamina, but suddenly the absolute slightest effort completely wipes you out. Basically, it's your body throwing up a warning flare. We really need a complete paradigm shift in how we think about mental health. Society has this deeply ingrained expectation of what depression is supposed to look like, right? The myth is that it's always extreme sadness, crying in bed, a total loss of motivation, or just wanting to give up. But the medical reality of early-stage depression is vastly different. It actually manifests as vague physical unwellness and chronic fatigue. It's much more of an I don't feel well rather than an I feel sad. Dr. Kabasawa stresses that those classic emotional symptoms generally represent the middle to severe stages of the illness. So if you're only looking out for the emotional symptoms, you are going to completely miss that critical early intervention window. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is where people actually go first when they need help. A massive 66%, literally 2/3 of all patients, make their first appointment with a general physician or internal medicine doctor. Only about a third go straight to a psychiatrist or mental health professional. And why is that? Well, because the onset of these mental health issues feels exactly like a physical bug. When your body is insanely heavy, you're dizzy, and your stomach is in knots, your logical brain just says, hey, I caught a virus. This statistic powerfully validates that if you or someone you know has ever mistaken the onset of a mental health condition for a physical illness, you are completely normal. You're actually part of the vast majority. And this body warning system we're talking about, it can vary wildly from person to person. For some people, it's chronic headaches or this heavy head sensation, almost like your brain is just stuck in a thick fog. For others, it shows up as severe stiff shoulders and neck pain. And fascinatingly, the research notes a really interesting cultural difference here. While Japanese patients frequently report that neck and shoulder stiffness, back pain is actually an incredibly common physical manifestation for Westerners. But it doesn't even stop at muscle pain. The illness can totally hijack your digestive tract, causing unexplained diarrhea. It can even mess with your breathing, presenting as chest tightness or this scary feeling that you just can't catch a full breath. These are entirely real, totally physical sensations. They're just being generated by a brain that is under profound stress. Which brilliantly illustrates the ultimate aha moment of this explainer: 0. That is the exact number of physical abnormalities doctors typically find when these patients go to that general physician and undergo standard medical tests. Think about it. You go to the doctor, you're completely exhausted, your back is aching, your stomach is in knots. They run all the blood work, they do an EKG, and the doctor comes back with a smile and says, "Great news, all your tests are perfectly clear." But you know for a fact you aren't healthy. When your physical suffering is immense, but your standard medical tests show exactly 0 abnormalities, That is the glaring, flashing neon sign that the root cause might actually be mental, not physical. Let's move 2 and see how this builds chronologically, because understanding this progression is absolutely your best defense. At the very beginning, let's call it week 1, it starts with that vague physical fatigue and body aches. You just feel a little bit off. By week 4, if it's left unchecked, this graduates into those unexplained physical illnesses, the headaches, the digestive issues we talked about. But as we just learned, your medical tests are going to come back totally clear. It is only much later, weeks 8 and beyond, that those classic emotional symptoms finally arrive. That's when the profound sadness and the total loss of motivation really kick in. And the tragic mistake so many people make is waiting for those week 8 symptoms before realizing they're dealing with depression, when their body was actively sounding the alarm way back in week 1. Because these early physical signs are so incredibly vague, Dr. Kabasawa issues a very strong, very clear warning. Stop trying to self-diagnose online or through books. Seriously, when you are in the early or mild stages of depression, it is notoriously difficult to identify it independently. I mean, if you type fatigue and headache into an online symptom checker, you are going to get 100 different horrifying physical diseases, which, let's be honest, will only spike your anxiety even more. The symptoms of early depression are just too common and way too easily confused with ordinary exhaustion or minor physical bugs. You just cannot accurately be your own doctor here. You need an objective, trained perspective to connect the dots that you might simply be too exhausted to see yourself. So what exactly should you do to figure out if you're just regular tired or clinically ill? Step 1. Acknowledge the chronic fatigue. Don't gaslight yourself here. If you are constantly exhausted despite resting, you've got to admit that something is off. Step 2. Stop pushing yourself blindly. As our initial quote showed, our first instinct is usually to just force ourselves to keep working. But pushing a completely depleted battery only destroys the battery. Give yourself permission to pause. And step 3, see a psychiatrist or a mental health professional for an accurate diagnosis. A specialist can help you determine if this is just an extension of normal exhaustion or if it has crossed over into a disease state that requires dedicated rest and potentially medication to help you heal. So the crucial point is, this goes way beyond just you. It's about protecting yourself and the person sitting right next to you. Dr. Kabasawa really emphasizes that everyone needs to know this information to protect our communities. By keeping this knowledge just tucked in the corner of your mind, you become equipped to protect your own health when your body starts whispering that something is wrong. But it also empowers you to support your colleagues, your friends, and your family. If you see a coworker constantly rubbing their neck, complaining of mysterious stomach bugs, and just looking utterly drained day after day, well, now you know they might not just need a weekend off. They might actually be in the early stages of a very serious mental health battle. Which brings us to the most important question of all. Are you or your coworkers just tired, or is your body desperately trying to tell you something else? I really want you to fundamentally rethink your relationship with chronic fatigue today. We have to stop treating exhaustion as a badge of honor or some kind of personal failing. Instead, start treating it as data. Listen to your body's early warning system before those physical whispers turn into emotional screams. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer today. Please check in on yourselves, check in on the people around you, and I'll see you next time.